Welcome everybody to today's session of the ITU Digital Transformation Dialogues. My name is Cristina Bueti. I'm Counselor on Metaverse and Smart Sustainable Cities at the International Telecommunication Union, and I'm delighted to be the Master of Ceremony for today's session. So before we begin, I would like to take a moment to discuss this session format. Today's session is part of a larger series by the ITU called the Digital Transformation Dialogues. In its new form, the Digital Transformation Dialogues brings experts from a range of industries and specialties together for webinars, fireside chats such as this one, and Ask the Expert sessions. Today's event will delve deep into the ethical consideration and societal impact of AI technology, providing a comprehensive understanding of the evolving landscape. But we also have many other exciting upcoming events. ITU colleagues will provide a link in the chat for future session, and we encourage you to remain part of this conversation moving forward. So before I introduce our moderator and speaker, I'd like to highlight a few logistical items. Firstly, all questions from the audience will be taken during the Q&A session after the fireside chat. If you have questions that you would like to submit, please do so by typing in the Q&A window. The Q&A icon can be seen at the bottom of your screen. In addition to your question, please also indicate the city and country you're connecting from. Finally, the fireside chat is being recorded, and the recording will be made available on the event website. Thank you very much. And now it is really my pleasure to introduce our moderator, Dr. Bilal Jamoussi, Deputy Director of the ITU Telecommunications Standardization Bureau, and our special guest, Ms. Natasha Crampton, VP, Chief Responsible AI Officer at Microsoft. Dr. Jamoussi, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Christina, and hello, everyone. In today's session, we will be discussing the ethical dimensions of AI, shedding light on responsible practices, transparency, and accountability. You will gain valuable insights into the ethical challenges posed by artificial intelligence applications and discover strategies to ensure that AI is developed and deployed in a manner that aligns with human values and societal well-being. To discuss these changes, I'm very pleased to be joined today by Ms. Natasha Crampton, Vice President and Chief Responsible AI Officer of Microsoft. Natasha leads Microsoft's Office for Responsible AI and has been in this position since 2019. Natasha is also a member of the United Nations Artificial Intelligence Advisory Body, bringing together stakeholders from government, industry, civil society, and academia for essential conversations around global AI governance, including how to advance AI responsibly and equitably, while mitigating potential risks. With that, let us start with the discussion. Natasha, welcome. You have a very interesting job title. You're Microsoft's Chief Responsible AI Officer. Can you tell us a bit what that involves?
Well, first, thank you so much for having me here today. It's really a pleasure to be with this group convened by the ITU from around the world. So my job at Microsoft really involves two parts. The first part is an internal facing part where I'm working alongside our engineering teams to make sure that the systems that we are building uphold Microsoft's AI principles. So way back in 2018, we adopted a set of 6 principles by which we say that AI systems that we build need to be fair, they need to be private and secure, reliable and safe, inclusive, transparent, and accountable. And all of my work within the company is directed towards making sure that we uphold those principles. So we write policies, we undertake trainings, we make sure that roles and responsibilities are clear. So for example, we have a network of responsible AI AI champions across the company who help us carry out these principles on a day-to-day basis. So that's the internal part of my job. And then the external part of my job is all about contributing to the discussion about the new laws and norms and standards that we need in this space. This has been a very active discussion, particularly over the last 18 months or so, but there's lots of early work that we can draw on there as well. And that's really born out of a recognition that while Microsoft recognizes its own very deep responsibility for making sure that technology that we make available is safe and secure, people also need protection under the law. And so that external work is all about making sure that we're contributing insights from our internal practice into that conversation, and also making sure that we're learning from that conversation and bringing those insights into our internal practice.
Amazing. Can you maybe tell us a bit more on how does your office interact with the teams in Microsoft that are developing and deploying the AI applications that we are using, starting to use today? How are they held accountable for implementing the policies that your office defines?
Yes, so we work very closely with the teams building the AI systems that Microsoft makes available. And we use all of the corporate governance infrastructure that you would expect an organization like Microsoft to utilize. So functions like internal audit and our enterprise risk management infrastructure. And that's all about making sure that we are in fact doing what we say we will, and that we're making progress towards our goals. This journey for us is a forever effort, but we are increasingly making incremental and sustained progress towards our objectives. We also try to be transparent about our approach. So over the years, we have, for example, published our Microsoft Responsible AI Standard. This is our internal framework for how we guide teams to build systems that uphold our principles. And we've also published reports over the years on the progress that we've made towards our goals. But perhaps the best way for me to bring this all to life in terms of the type of work that we do with our engineering teams is to give you an example. So for some...
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So for some time now, we've had some pretty cutting edge technology that allows a small amount of somebody's speech to be converted into a voice print, so a synthetic representation of their voice. This is, a really amazing technology in lots of entertainment applications, in lots of accessibility scenarios, but especially in the election year in which we are in around the world, you can imagine that this technology could also be used for concerning purposes that could undermine democracy itself. So when we built this technology, we knew that we needed to take a responsible approach from the very outset. So our team did things like, first of all, undertaking an impact assessment, working very closely with the engineering team so that we could identify the stakeholders that we needed to be particularly mindful with this type of technology, recognizing, for example, that speakers needed to be protected from their voices being impersonated, and listeners needed to be protected from being deceived by representations of people's voices and people saying, appearing to say things that they did not in fact say. So we built a whole program around this technology. We decided that we would only make it available to customers with whom we have a close relationship, so that we could be involved in the way in which the technology is being deployed and used. We said, look, there are some use cases for which the technology is really well suited, and we will support those. Then finally, we worked on a range of technical safeguards to make sure that the technology could only be used for those beneficial use cases and to guard against its misuse. So there are technical controls built into the technology that mean that the speaker has to be actively involved in creating their voice print. We use watermarking technology and the like. So that's just one example of this holistic approach that we try to take to these issues, working very deeply, not just with our engineering teams, but with our research teams who help us keep ahead of the risks that these types of technologies might involve, but also our policy teams who are across how the laws and norms and standards are developing in this space.
Thank you. That's a really good concrete example of how you're taking steps into validating the use of and implementation of some of the AI technologies. There are still fears out there in terms of how do we respond, to these concerns and fears that AI might be going out of control. Is that something that we should be worried about?
So one of the key mantras that we adopt at Microsoft is just recognizing that AI systems are built by people and they're built for people. This is really important because it centers on the idea that AI systems are the product of lots of different decisions that we make as we design and as we develop and deploy the technology. And that includes, of course, an assessment of whether we should build and make available the technology at all. So keeping humans in the center of the technology is, of course, critically important. And we do that today in a range of different ways. So some of the attendees at today's Fireside chat might have had the opportunity to use our CoPilot, which is our AI-powered assistant, which is now available in a range of our products. We have deliberately designed our copilots so that they do not act as autopilots. Users are presented with responses, with links to sources where they can go and dig into and find out more information as needed. When we generate content, it doesn't automatically get sent in an email or anything like that. So we make real design choices to make sure that humans are kept at the center. And then, of course, we think about really especially consequential scenarios where human control is just of the utmost importance. So we have, for example, from a public policy point of view, really pointed to the fact that when we are deploying AI in, say, critical infrastructure scenarios where you might have, for example, AI assisting with managing, traffic systems or water systems, then clearly you need to build in safety brakes by design. So we need to design and build these systems in ways that mean that where there are situations where the system is starting to behave outside of expectations, by design, there are controls in the technology at various layers of the technology stack that allow the technology to be slowed down or pulled back or stopped altogether. So I think it is important to both recognize these concerns, but also understand deeply our fundamental responsibility to make design choices that mean humans always remain in the center of the technology.
Those are really interesting and important insights in how you're managing and governing AI within the company. I wonder if we can turn now to AI governance more broadly. What for you are the vital ingredients of AI governance? And given our audience today, I would appreciate insights into the role of standards in this governance process.
So fundamentally, I think AI governance is all about making sure that there are clear rules of the road. And those rules of the road, they need to be informed by timeless values and also local context. And I think that's really important given the role that ITU plays around the world and the global audience that we have with us today. We also need people to be accountable for adhering to those rules and also enforcing those rules of the road, because that is an important part of making sure that AI governance is real and has impact in the world. I think it is important to recognize that although AI, and especially generative AI, has created a lot of interest and excitement and some amount of fear and concern as well over the last 18 months or 2 years in particular, we do have a lot to build upon when it comes to AI governance. There are existing laws, there are existing standards that we can draw upon. But there are also some new and unique risks that we need to understand deeply and then apply the right governance mechanisms to help drive in the direction so that the technology is always serving people and is in pursuit of important objectives like advancing the Sustainable Development Goals. So I think when we're thinking about the role that standards can play here, I do think they're a key part of getting AI governance right. One of the things that's interesting about AI is that the supply chain for a single AI system can be quite complex. You might, the AI system might draw upon multiple models from different providers that are stitched together in a system. So one of the things that I think standards can do very well is to help overcome some of the complexities of that supply chain and make sure that a customer at the end of that supply chain is able to rely on standards and assurance by way of certifications and the like, that everything that has come prior has met appropriate standards. So I think that's an important role that standards can play. And I also think standards can play an important role in facilitating access to the technology on a global basis. I think it's critically important that with this wave of digital transformation, we don't make some of the mistakes that we've made in past waves of digital transformation where they really haven't been as globally distributed as they ought to have been. And I think standards can help facilitate the equitable distribution of the technology in a way that people can trust. So I do see a key role for standards there.
Great. Perhaps building on the concept that AI is a global technology, as you mentioned, developed and used across borders. Isn't there a need for some kind of a global AI governance? And if you agree, what should it look like?
Yes, global governance is certainly key to ensuring that AI serves all of humanity. At Microsoft, the way that we think about it is that there should really be 3 complementary and interrelated layers of governance. So first, there should be industry governance. It's very important that leading AI labs and technology developers like Microsoft and others first understand their own deep responsibility for building technology in a way that warrants trust. So that is the first layer of governance. And you've seen this in play over the last wee while with voluntary commitments and the like that have been made by industry players in various countries around the world. On top of that, we do need national regulation. National regulation is key to making sure that local values and cultural contexts are properly accounted for, as well as the different legal traditions that exist around the world. On top of that, though, we do need global governance as well. And I think last year was an active year on all fronts. And this year, we've already had 2 firsts that I think are important to call out. We've had the first regional AI legislation in Europe's AI Act, which is just going through the final stages of being adopted. And just last month in March, we had the first UN General Assembly resolution on AI, which also helped to reinforce some emerging norms that have come through various processes, including a G7 process that resulted in the Hiroshima process principles and code of conduct. Now, in my personal capacity, one of the roles that I have is to be on the UN AI advisory body, as you mentioned earlier. And we're really trying to advise the Secretary General on what global governance should look like. for this topic and how it should interrelate with other layers of governance. As part of this group, we issued our first interim report called Governing AI for Humanity in December 2023, and we're now in the process of engaging in consultation on the ideas that we communicated there. We very much welcome input on the ideas that we communicated, and you can for example, join one of our deep dives that are being conducted at the moment, or you can also submit comments through the website for the UNAI advisory body. I think three of the key functions that have emerged from some of those discussions are, first, that we need an international horizon scanning and risk assessment process so that governments around the world are well informed about how the technology is evolving, what are the opportunities and risks that it presents. There's a strong recognition that we need regulatory interoperability, and that's something that needs to happen at the global level, and standards, of course, will be a key part of that. And the third aspect is that there's a very strong conviction that we need to make sure that this wave of digital transformation is in fact driving inclusive progress around the world. And so there are important questions that we are working through at the moment about how we can make sure that countries that today do not have the same infrastructure or skilled workforce to really embrace the AI wave in the way that they would like to. How can we assist with that? So all of those questions are very live ones. Fundamentally, we are trying to build at the global level on all of the fantastic existing work that's already been done. We do see so much specialized expertise already in the UN system. We see specialized networks and the ITU's and work, as well as the ISO's work on technical standards are examples of this. And there's also lots of great existing initiatives. And I think the ITU's AI for Good Summit is a really great example of that. So we're aiming to pull on that rich body of work that exists already and really suggest some ideas that we can build on top of that to address the unique needs of AI at the global governance level.
Great. Thank you very much, Natasha. I really enjoyed the chat today, and thanks for all the insights you provided us and our audience globally around the world. I'll turn it now back to Christina. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bilal, and thank you so much, Natasha, once again. I think that has been really a very insightful conversation, and I would like also to thank our audience for the attendance and the participation in this session. I'd like actually to take the opportunity to invite you to join our next events. So we are going to have a webinar that will be held in Spanish on metaverse, in particular, that will take place on the 22nd of April. And it is being organized actually in collaboration with the government of the Dominican Republic. We are going to hold an Ask the Expert session on breaking barriers in the metaverse, improving accessibility. That will take place on the 25th of April. And then I'm very pleased actually to inform you that we will be also holding, as part of the UN Week 2.0, a side event on harnessing the metaverse and virtual worlds for global impact on the 26th of April from 2 to 3 EST time. So please do keep an eye on the ITU website to see information on our upcoming discussions. I think this events provide really great opportunities to delve into new and exciting developments, especially in the digital transformation space. And we encourage you to attend. So really, thank you again for your participation. And then if there are questions in the chat, then probably there's a possibility to take just one question, and I'll leave it to Bilal and to Natasha, and then we can conclude the session.
Natasha, are there any questions, further questions you'd like to address from the Q&A?
Sure, I'm happy to help with the question. I see there's a question about whether governments and politicians are well versed enough on AI to ensure that the laws and policies are flexible enough while being strong enough. This is a great question because, you know, we do want to make sure that while the technology is in fact moving quickly, that we are creating durable legal frameworks that can be adapted to the evolving technology and also evolving societal expectations, because that's an important part of the equation as well. What I've seen is that governments are very lent-in. Policymakers around the world have really been thirsty, in my experience, to gather as much information as they can and learn from industry experts, academia, civil society experts about the technology. So I do see this as a very positive development and positive signal on the interest in learning. It is going to be critically important in this space to have that two-way exchange. So we do need, I think, legal frameworks, standards and norm-setting approaches that really do bring together the private sector and the public sector. In terms of keeping ahead of the risk, this is where I think sort of a consistent scientific risk assessment at the global level can be a very useful instrument for driving common understanding. And the second thing that I would say is that we do need to make sure that we are building legal frameworks that have two characteristics. One, they need to be outcomes focused, because that is one of the most durable ways to make sure that we're consistently achieving the right policy outcomes, even when technology and society is changing quickly. And the second thing I'd say is that we need our legal frameworks to be risk-based. That allows us to direct the most attention to the highest risk scenarios and allows low risk scenarios to proceed with some appropriate basic guardrails so that people can get the benefit of the technology in low risk settings. So I think if we make a commitment to ongoing knowledge exchanges between the private and public sectors, academia and civil society, and we focus on legal frameworks that are risk-based and outcomes focused, we'll be on a good path there.
Great, thank you very much. How are we doing with time, Christina?
We have to close, actually. Our session is expected to close actually in 1 minute. So maybe over to you, Bilal, and then.
No, just wanted to really thank you very much, Natasha, for your insights today, and also for mentioning the AI for Good Summit and the work that ITU is doing in terms of enabling that global governance that the H Lab is building its recommendations on. And really for your time and sharing with us the expertise. Thank you. And thanks, Chris, for setting this up.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much to the attendees. Thank you. The session is now closed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Natasha.